Alright, so we are now part 3 of 6.3 exponential functions. You know that the original equation looks like this. Y equals a times b to the x. However, you will see equations that will look pretty crazy, but they're not that scary, and this is going to be the form. And all it is a transformation. So, there's two things that you see are different. Okay, so what's one of the variables that's added? K. So K is just like we did first semester with transformations. This is going to tell you to move the graph. Which direction? Does anyone remember? Up or down. Very good. So this is going to be vertical. You're going to move it vertically, which means you're either going to move it up or down, depending if it's positive or negative. Perfect. What's the other variable that you see that's new? H. Okay, so this H, obviously if it's not vertically, it's going to be horizontally. And it's going to tell you to move it, left or right. Now remember, when it's inside here, it's going to always be the opposite. So if this is saying x minus 3, even though it's a minus 3, instead of moving it left, right, you're really going to be moving it to the right 3 times. So we just have to do lots of practice. So we're going to do monitoring progress 7, and just looking at it algebraically. What number is in my K position? -1. So this means just by looking at this, that this graph is going to shift 1 down. Very good. 1 unit down. So that's H. And what is K? K is positive 2, but remember it's kind of the opposite. So because of the H, this is going to shift which direction? To the left, because it's the opposite. So it's going to go to the left. How many units? 2 units. Alright, that's just if you have to just, without graphing it, just knowing what the translation is. Now, in order to graph it, here's how we're going to start. Let's just write this equation without the transformations like you did for homework last night. So y equals -2 times 3 to the x. Alright, we know this. What is A? -2. What is B? 3. Let's do a quick sketch. What's my y-intercept? -2. Awesome. You guys have nailed that. Now, let's think about it. B is greater than 1. A is a negative. So it's going to shift where? It's going to point where? Left or right? Left or right? To the? Oh, we don't know. So let's take a look at our notes again. Is it going to be left or right since I'm recording this? Right. To the right. Very good. Is it going to swing up or is it going to swing down?
Swing up.
Again, I'm recording it. Is it going to swing up or is it going to swing down?
Down.
Down. Very good. Very good. So it's going to look something like that. Alright, so let's start graphing this since we have an idea of what it looks like. What is the very first point? I know for sure.
0, 2.
0? -2. Thank you. Now, looking at my graph, remember, if I pick negative numbers, the number's going to get super, super, super small. Good. Yeah, and they can't go past. So that's going to, let's just pick some positive numbers. So let's pick a positive number. Let's do 1. Great. So y equals -2 times 3 to the first. Y equals -2 times 3. So y is going to equal -6. So -6. So now I go to 1, -6. Let's draw a better graph because that's just my sketch. So 0, -2. 1, -6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's pick a negative number. We'll pick -1, perfect. So y equals -2 times 3 to the -1. 3 to the -1 turns us into the reciprocal. So y equals -2 times 1 over 3. So y equals -2/3. Ooh, super small. So when x is -1, -2/3 is right here. Okay, so I can quickly sketch what this is going to look like. Now we're going to do a transformation, and I'm going to do it in another color pen. So as I do this in another color pen, thank you so much, we are going to, remember, it was shifting down 1 and shifting to the left twice. Okay, let's start with my x values, and I'm going to do my whole numbers here. I'll put it down here. Let's start here. Okay, x. X is going to be, is x left or right, up or down? The x-axis. It's always left and right, right? Okay, so look, left and right. I have to shift this to the left. So if it's at 1, now I'm going to put it 2 to the left, so I'm just going to really subtract it. So I'm going to do here 1 minus 2, and 1 minus 2 is -1. So that is my new point. Let me show the math over here. So it's really 1 minus 2 because I shifted it, which becomes -1. Now let's do the y. The y, which is up and down, I'm going to shift it 1 down. So from here to here, when I shift 1 down, I'm really subtracting 1. So it's going to be -6 minus 1, and my new point is going to be -7. So let's do that new point here. So x is now, instead of x being 1, x is now -1, and then -7. Let's do this one here for 0. 0 minus 2 becomes -2. So -2 minus 1 becomes, okay, so here's my another point. -2, 1, 2, -3, 1, 2, 3. So you can kind of see the translation of my original point. It's the one that's in red. I'm not using graph paper, so it's a little bit messy. I understand that. And ultimately, you'll be using graphing calculators. So this is just the math with the points. So instead of looking at graphing one equation and then doing the shifts to get that from the points, we could just plug numbers into this original equation. So let's do the same problem. I'm going to write it here. Y equals -2 times 3 to the x plus 2 minus 1. And I'm going to do a t-chart, and I'm going to pick points, but because I can't pick, let's see here, well, let's just pick points. So let's do -1 from what I did here for x, -1. Alright, I'm going to plug it into this whole crazy equation. Y equals -2 times 3 times -1 plus 2 minus 1. Crazy math, but it's not too scary. Let's do the exponent first. What's -2 plus, -1 plus 2 is 1. So, -2 times 3 is -6. -6 minus 1 is -7. Oh, look. I got the same answer as I did up here. So just plugging in points without doing the shifts gets you the same answer, but I want you to understand the shifts. So let's do one more. We'll do -2. And try to squeeze my math in here. Y equals -2 times 3 to the -2 plus 2 minus 1. Ooh, I like that one. I like that because what's -2 plus 2? 0. And we all know that anything to the 0 power is 1. So that means it's -2 minus 1, which is -3. So you can come up with the same answers just doing it mathematically. And again, it's just practice. Practice, practice, practice. So here's example 5 from the worksheet. If you look at this problem here with the transformation, you're noticing that it only has a k, so that means it only has a vertical shift 1 unit up. Okay, so A is 1/3, B is 6. Let's just get a little bit of a idea of what it looks like. So it's going to be facing to the right, and it's going to be going up. Okay, now we're going to plug in points. We're going to pick 1. I'll do my math here. Y equals 1/3 times 6 to the first plus 1. Y equals, 6 to the first is just 6, right? 6 divided by 3 is 2 plus 1, so y equals 3. So 1, 3. That's for the 1 and 1/3, which is great. So with before the transformation, that's a very good good question. Before the transformation, our y-intercept would have been 1/3. But because of the transformation, you're actually going to add the A and the K, and that gives you your y-intercept. So your y-intercept is 1 and 1/3, which is 4/3. So that's 0, 1 and 1/3, which is just a little bit above 1/3. Now looking at my graph, it still looks like it's going to be facing the same direction. That's correct. Okay. Now I'm also going to show you something. Because it is shifted up, before I told you it would never cross the x-axis. Well, because I shifted up, it actually is not going to cross the 1. So we're going to draw a line, a dotted line here. And this is algebra 2. But this dotted line that it's never going to cross is called the asymptote. I know that's a new word, kind of a funny sounding word. We'll get to it more. But that means it's never going to cross that. Alright, let's plug another point in. Now if I pick a negative point, do you see how it's going to get super, 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 super small? But it'll never cross the -1. Alright, so I picked 1, so what number would you like to pick? Oh, -1. Remember I just said if I pick a negative number, it's going to get a positive. Yeah, let's pick positive 2. That's a great one there. So y equals 1/3 times 6 squared plus 1. Y equals 1/3 of 36 plus 1. So when I cross reduce, this becomes 12. So y equals 12 plus 1, which is 13. So 2 all the way up here to 13. And now I can kind of sketch this line, but don't cross that 1. And that's what it looks like. And no joke, I was sitting in the Algebra 2 class, honors class yesterday. They had this up on the Promethean board. They were graphing exponents, and I said, hey, that's exactly what I'm doing in my Algebra 1 class. So you're going to see it again for Algebra 2. Okay, let's do example 6 that you guys have been working on. Somebody tell me what A is. 3. Tell me what B is. 1/2. Let's do a very quick sketch of it. Is it going to be facing to the left or to the right? Very good. To the left. Is it going to be facing up or down? Up. Very good. So just the quick sketch, that's what it should look like. Okay. Now if you remember from number 5, there's going to be a new y-intercept. And the shortcut of the new y-intercept is taking A, right, and adding it here to K. That would be the new y-intercept. And here's the reason why. If I were to plug in 0 for x, that also means if there's no left or right shift. That only works for the left and right shift, if there's none. So if I were to put 0 here, this 0 would make this entire fraction 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. So 0, 4 is going to be my y-intercept. That's only if there's no horizontal shift. So the shift here, I told you there's no horizontal, which means there is a vertical. So what's the vertical shift? Good. 1 unit up. Good. All right. So knowing that the graph looks like this, and then I also told you that this number here is what it's never going to pass. So I'm going to draw a little line there. So what number do you think? It's going to get smaller. It's going to go this direction. What number would you like to pick?
-1.
Let's do -1. Absolutely. -1. So it should go up from there. We'll pick -1. All right. Y equals 3 times 1/2 to the -1 plus 1. Aha! Negative exponent is telling me to change it to the reciprocal. So this is really 3 times 2 plus 1. Good. So y equals 6 plus 1, which equals 7. Very good. -1, 7. Excellent. Okay, let's pick another one. -2. Awesome. Y equals 3 times 1/2 to the -2 plus 1. Y equals 3 times, well, this negative is telling it to flip. So it's really 2 to the second power plus 1. 2 to the second power is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 1 is 13. So -2 all the way up here to 13. Now, just for fun, because this is so much fun, I would like to do a positive number because I want to see this go down. Okay? So I'm going to use +2. Why not? So I'll do my math up here. 3 times 1/2 squared plus 1. 1/2 squared is 1/2 times 1/2, which is 1/4. Good. So 3 times 1/4 plus 1, which makes this 3/4 plus 1, which makes this 1 3/4. 2 and 1 3/4 is really, really close here. Now, I'm going to kind of sketch this. And this is actually a perfect time for me to talk about domain and range. So, domain and range. Domain. Domain is everything in the x-axis. How far is this graph? So if each of you guys were standing on this line, and you guys were all to bum rush and towards the x-axis, all the way down here, how much of the x-axis would be covered? The whole thing. Very good. So the domain of this one is all real numbers. Very good. Okay, the range is different. So if I were all standing, if you guys were here and you were going to run towards the y-axis, how much of that y-axis would be covered? Everything greater than 1. Awesome. Who said that?
Tucker said that.
Tucker, great job. Greater than